to my channel, Over 60 Scene, and I'm Wilma. And today I want to talk about weight loss. I had my doctor's appointment 2 weeks ago, and she has given me until April to get some pounds off. She didn't say how many, but she wanted to see, my weight down from what it was when I stepped on the scale 2 weeks ago. So I had previously sent for this book, Metabolic Freedom by Ben Azadi. And some of you may have seen some of his videos on YouTube, which I have also watched, which was why I sent for this book. And I've had it for several months now, probably 6 months, at 4 anyway. And I just read the preface and the introduction and the first chapter. And I gotta say, I'm hearing stuff that I've never heard before. And I thought I heard everything in weight loss over the years. But just to tell you a little bit about my story, I was always thin as a child, a lot of energy, always a lot, athletic, a lot of running around, can't sit still kind of thing, and never had a problem with weight until I was an adult, really. Maybe in my teen years, when I started to be able to get out and drive, and I could stop at a convenience store and get a bag of Doritos, or I could help myself to snacks whenever I wanted. When I was a kid, we didn't have snacks around the house. I mean, it was pretty much your basic 3 meals a day, and not much in between snacking. Of course, I would try to snack in between. Who didn't, But I was so full of so much energy that I would just burn it off anyway, so I never had a weight problem until I was much older. And I started to creep up in my late teens and early 20s, and then I actually developed an eating disorder. I was basically what one would consider anorexic, or borderline anorexic, because I think I took myself right to that point where if I had kept going, I would have really had a problem. I was 5'8" tall, and I had gotten myself down to 112 pounds at the age of maybe 19, 20. I forget exactly how old I was at that point. But thankfully, I woke up and I said, Wilma, you can't keep doing this. I knew I started to feel unhealthy. I started to look unhealthy. And I pulled myself, by some miracle, I pulled myself back from the brink. And this was in the late 70s, early 80s, when you didn't hear a lot about anorexia. It was just starting to be talked about. It wasn't a thing. And I remember sitting in a doctor's office or somewhere, reading a magazine article about it, and I went, oh my gosh, that might be me. This might be me. And I think that kind of scared me and gave me the incentive to turn things around. So anyway, thankfully I did. Maybe I'll do some more reflecting on that at some point and try to figure out how that all happened. But, another thing that was happening at that point in my life was that I was having panic attacks, anxiety panic attacks. And it was all about adjusting to being an adult and getting out in the world, getting your first office job, having to meet all the stressors and requirements of a job, and that was what I felt my situation was caused by. But anyway, I didn't really mean to get into talking about this part of my my life, but it's probably a good thing that I mentioned it, because I guess it does play a part in where I'm at now. And I think maybe I will do a video another time on specifically on that part of my life. I'm just not prepared for that right now. But anyway, so over the years, on into my early 30s, I still, I was married. I was married at age 29. I didn't have my daughter until I was 35. And I was pretty much, I kept my weight, fine during my the remainder of my 20s and my early 30s. But then, as it happens when you have a pregnancy, you gain, 30, 40 pounds. And then it was after my pregnancy that I had trouble getting that weight off. But I did manage to get some of it off. Some of it came off just naturally. But I wasn't down to where I had been previously. So I guess what I'm trying to say is I've been struggling with my weight now. I'm age 67 now. I've been struggling with my weight now since my mid-30s, really, on and off. So I've tried a lot of methods to lose weight. Probably what worked the best for me always was cutting carbs. That seemed to work if I could keep it up. But it was always hard to keep it up, because at some point, I'd be a couple weeks into it, and that temptation, at work people would be bringing in snacks and things in the break room, and I would succumb to the temptation. And then once I had my first donut, after several weeks of not having any of that type of thing, I would fall right back into the old habit of, one won't hurt. Then a couple hours later, maybe just another one, and then before you know it, I'm back on, eating junk food and everything bad for me again. So when I started recently, I'm age 67, when I started watching Ben Azadi talk about his method of weight loss, it sounded so different. Because his method, I'm just going to recap what I've read in the first chapter. In fact, let me read the preface. Are you fed up with bad diets, calorie counting, and excessive exercise, and looking to finally break free with a new way to reset your metabolism and achieve metabolic freedom? With Metabolic Freedom, you will learn how your metabolism works and discover the top contributors to why your metabolism has become inefficient. You'll explore all the main factors that compel a free metabolism, including the power of keto fasting, improved sleep, cutting-edge biohacks, mindset shifts, smart exercise routines, specific food swaps, and more. This book will also look at the way hormones influence these processes as they impact male and female bodies differently. Most importantly, all of these tools are combined at the end of the book for you to start implementing a clear roadmap to achieve metabolic freedom within 30 days by customizing your own plan. So this really interests me. And of course, and this man, Ben Azadi, he is not a doctor. He's just done tons and tons of studies and figured out what worked. So basically, in reading, I'm just going to recap a little bit of what I read this morning. His theory is that weight loss starts at the cellular level. I had never heard that before. Basically, your cells are what helps you burn fat. And if your cells are full of inflammation, that will interfere with fat burning. So inflammation, like nobody ever talked about inflammation and dieting that I can remember. Maybe I'm, I don't know, maybe I haven't been around, and maybe everybody else is like, oh yeah, they talk about that all the time, you know, but I hadn't heard that before. His theory is that you can build a new body with vibrant cells within days. So he's talking about 30 days to turn this around. Chronic inflammation in your cell membranes cause fatigue, brain fog, and weight gain. And it can lead to diabetes, heart disease, autoimmune conditions, and cancer. His theory is that you need to get healthy to lose weight first. Get healthy first to lose weight. Not lose weight to get healthy. We always keep hearing, you gotta lose weight, you gotta get healthy, you know, but if you have to start with getting healthy. It makes sense. It makes complete sense. And he mentioned Groundhog Day, which I thought was funny because we're coming up on Groundhog Day, next week, I think, the end of this week, and you know the movie, same day, over and over and over and over. And that's exactly how I feel about weight loss. That, you know, because I would do really good for a couple of weeks and then just fall back into the same old pattern. And then the next time I decide to lose weight, same thing. Now, I retired last year in 2024, and over the course of the first probably 6 months, I lost 15 pounds without really even trying. Just not being at work, I guess not the stress hormones maybe so much, and mostly not that break room with all the goodies on the table. That right there. So that got me thinking, like, yeah, I mean, I can do it. I just have to make the changes that are necessary. So, okay, Groundhog Day. He says if the cell membranes are inflamed, the fat-burning hormones will not be able to tell your cells to burn fat. So it's like it almost doesn't matter that you're cutting calories, that you're cutting carbs. If you have this inflammation in your cells, you might not burn fat anyway. Okay, then he talked about the calories in versus calories out theory. Like he said, most doctors will just tell you, eat less calories, exercise more. That's what they'll tell you. Which is true. That is what they'll tell you. A lot of them. And let me say, I should have said this at the beginning. I am not a medical professional. I'm not a dietitian. I'm not a medical person in any way. I'm just showing you this book that might be interesting for you to read, or go check out some of his videos, because it makes a lot of sense to me. Makes sense to me. He mentioned the TV show The Biggest Loser, which was what they did on that show. It was basically, you know, less calories and more exercise. But he also mentioned that 13 out of the 14 people that participated in that gained all the weight back and some of them gained more weight back than they were before. So it doesn't sound like that's always the answer, is it? And he also mentioned that we are hardwired from over millions of years of evolution. Now, I'm not going to talk whether you believe in evolution or whether you believe in, what your belief system is there. But it's true that we eat so differently than our ancestors did. We eat differently than our ancestors did 2 generations ago or 1 generation ago. I eat differently than my mother ate. My mother was a Depression baby. She grew up in the Depression, and they grew their own food. They had a cow. They, had a lot of meatless meals during the Depression because you just didn't have that. And basically what our ancestors ate was a high fat, high fiber, and high protein diet. And if they had any sugar at all, it was from fruits, berries, fruits and berries. They'd be walking through on their hunting expedition, and there's a blackberry bush or a blueberry bush, so they would stop and have that. But I guess that type of sugar is more slow burning in your system than processed sugars, which made it more healthy. He mentioned the theory that some weight loss people had promoted in the past of eating lots of small meals. And he said this, the other people's theories was that would fuel your metabolism to burn more fat. But unfortunately, what it also does is it never gives your body's systems, a rest. You're constantly, digestive system is trying to keep up with all these constant meals all the time. And I'm guilty of this. I am so guilty of this. Eating every 2 or 3 hours. Grabbing this, grabbing that, I'm guilty of that. He called it grazing. So basically he says grazing is not good. It's not good for your system because it doesn't give your system a chance to rest and repair itself. Makes total sense. Even he says, eating dinner and then not eating anything after dinner and then waiting at least 12 hours, which is considered a fast. But to me, I'm pretty good about that. I'm pretty good about not eating after dinner. I have a hard time during the day when I'm here by myself, and it's just too easy to go out to the kitchen and grab something. But so his suggestion is don't graze. He said grazing can also lead to fatty liver and leaky gut and also inflammation because of the constant eating. And as far as carbs, he says your body has all the glucose it needs, so you don't need carbs. So cutting carbs is a good thing. And unfortunately, he says your body will try to maintain your weight. This is due to evolution and famine that our ancestors experienced. So it's basically your body is trying to do you a favor by keeping the weight on, because it thinks that you're in a famine, and so it's going to try to keep the weight on. So, I mean, these are all reasons why we've had a hard time, because it's like our body is trying to help us in some ways, but also hurting us in other ways. And also, willpower. You know, we've all had trouble with willpower, and you know, we've had these bad habits, bad eating habits for decades. We have to admit it. I have. I'm going to confess right now. We had this snowstorm coming this past weekend. My husband, who rarely eats any sweets at all, says, "Hey, you want some donuts? I'm going to go up and get some donuts. Why don't you make a pot of coffee?" And oh, did that sound good to me. Just, with the snow coming down outside and the hot coffee and the donut. I mean, I was in heaven. It was all cozy, you know? And then I was stopping and thinking, like, I'm eating this not because I'm hungry. I'm eating this, I'm creating a little scene in my mind, you know, that's probably giving me some endorphins or something. I don't know. So, I don't know. These are all things to think about. They're all things to think about. So as I embark on this, as I continue to read his book, I'm going to do an update every so often. And I'm also going to give you an update on any of my weight loss. I'm currently, I wear a size large or extra large clothes. I'm now 5'6.5". I've shrunk like an inch. I've shrunk an inch and a half. Being in my old age, being a senior now. And I don't know if I'm going to talk about my actual weight. I'm not comfortable doing that right now. Maybe I will. Once I get some pounds off, maybe I'll say how much I'm at. But if you've seen some of my try-ons, you know I wear a size large or extra large, which is in women's clothes, like a size 18. That's what I wear, a size 18. Sometimes small, 16 or 14 for the tops. But let me talk about this I was thinking about this recently too. You know, the clothing manufacturers, the sizes are all over the place. All over the place. Back in the 40s and 50s, or even the 60s when I was a kid, the sizes were very rigid. And the average size woman was a size 10 or a 12. Okay, back then. Which, like a size 12 was like, I should get an old clothing pattern and read the measurements on there. So you can see what I'm talking about. I think a size 12 would have been like a 36, 24, 36. But somehow, over the years, the clothing manufacturers have funnied around with the sizes to make us feel like we are thinner than we are. So in other words, I'm wearing a size 18 now, but back then, I probably would have been in a 20 or a 24, or even whatever's after that. And I think that's wrong. I think something needs to happen so that these sizes are standardized. So everybody knows that the size, this is what the measurements are for this size, period. Not all this, fluctuating. And then you have extra small, medium, large, and then so like a large in some places is like 12, 14. Other places it's a 14, 16. What's a large? Tell me what a large is, and let's stick to it instead of, you go to one store and it's one way and you go somewhere else and it's something else. That's wrong, I think. They need to get more standardized. Go back to the old sizes so that we know what size we are. Even when I was borderline anorexic, I I never wore smaller than like a junior size 9. I think at one time I maybe fit into a junior size 7, but for the most part, I mean, my bone structure would not allow me to be down in that size, at 5'8". I mean, that's just how it was. And so I see these people that are size 0, extra small, and I'm like, wait a minute. Back in the 60s, you would have been a size 8. So why are you telling me now that you're an extra small? That's not extra small. I don't know. I'm stumped. It's all like a shell game. But anyway, that was just something I threw in there. So anyway, this is all I'm going to talk about this morning. And yeah, I kind of like to hear your comments about any weight loss tips that you have, or weight loss experience that you've had, or what were your challenges if you were able to get the weight off. What were the challenges that you overcame? And yeah, maybe we can just go down this road together a little bit. And I think it'll help hold me more accountable too, so that, because I want to be able to come back and say, hey, I lost 2 pounds this week. Okay, so I'm going to wrap this up. And again, here's the book, Metabolic Freedom. Is it backwards? Oh yeah, it's backwards. Okay. Sorry. Metabolic Freedom by Ben Azadi. Maybe you want to check it out and see if it makes any sense to you. So anyway, hope you have a great day. Have a great week. And I'll see you in my next video. Bye. Keep smiling.